Welcome back to Jeff Pratt Talks Hoops. Today I'm reacting to Bleacher Report's article predicting the top 100 NBA players for the upcoming season. Every time Bleacher Report releases one of these predictions, they are extremely divisive, so I'm excited to dive right into it. Reviewing all 100 players would take forever, so this time I'm just going to focus on their top 30. Let's get into it. As you can see, we've got Trae Young at 30. 12 last season was probably a little bit high, and if you look at Trae Young's stats, they're still pretty damn good. I did not shoot the ball efficiently whatsoever. 73 games played, however, so he does have a mark of consistency there, and he's extremely divisive. Everyone knows this. You love Trae Young or you hate him. Most people are on the anti-side of that equation, at least right now, because the Hawks just have not been able to get it done over the last few years since their Eastern Conference Finals appearance a couple of seasons ago. And naturally, when you're the best player on a team and the team's not getting it done, there are two people you can blame: the coach and the player. And the coach is gone in Atlanta. Quinn Snyder's in. He obviously has a full offseason now in Atlanta to implement his system. I think that's going to be great for this Hawks team, and specifically Trae Young. And I think there's a chance that Pascal Siakam could be on this team next year. And if that happens, then the Hawks could be a sneaky good team in the East to watch, making a run, at least in the regular season. Quinn Snyder has always been a very good regular season head coach, but this team has a lot of talent, and Trae Young, despite being number 30 on this list, still one hell of a basketball player. Number 29, Brandon Ingram, not performing so well right now in FIBA. He put up great stats last year and 5.8 assists per game. That was the evolution that really impressed me. We knew the guy could score, but from a playmaking perspective, this is something that I didn't think Brandon Ingram had in his bag. And it's something that New Orleans really needs because they don't have a true point guard. CJ McCollum is playing that spot, but they've drafted a couple of guys, Dyson Daniels. They were looking to trade up for Scoot Henderson. They don't have a true point guard, and Ingram has really stepped into a secondary facilitator role and excelled in it. Look at that. His teammate, Zion Williamson, number 28. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Everyone knows that when Zion plays, he's a better player than Brandon Ingram. His ceiling is so much higher. His ceiling is, top 10 in the NBA right now. When he's at his best, he's one of the most dominant players, most efficient players in the league. The problem is the guy just can't stay on the floor. Not much to say about his game. He's incredibly dominant, super efficient. As you see there, almost 61% from the field. He's also down 6 spots. Interesting, I understand downgrading Zion just because he only played 29 games. As you can see right there, not a huge fan of downgrading Ingram. Number 27, Bam Adebayo, a very interesting player to rank. He really is a very competent playmaker. I mean, you put the ball in his hands a little bit more in Miami, and he could probably rack up close to 5.5 assists per game. That is who he is. He hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year, but he's always in that conversation. Ridiculous numbers. He is up 3 spots from last season. I think after the last year he definitely deserves to bump up a little bit. So I'm with this. I mean, at his peak, Zion's clearly the better player. I think even Heat fans would agree with that. But there's the discussion again. Zion at his ceiling is so much greater, but he's not playing that many games, whereas Bam played 75 games. I think Ingram versus Bam is a very interesting conversation. Tied for 25, Mikal Bridges and Kyrie Irving, two completely different players, one rising star, one incredibly talented guard who just seems to torpedo every single team he lands on. 20.1 points per game, but when he was with the Nets, that was up to 26, 27 points per game. 58 last year, up 33 spots to 25. I think that's extremely well deserved for Mikal Bridges. Kyrie Irving is an interesting one to rank because the stats are fantastic. He has not dropped off his game whatsoever. The talent is still there. His production is still there. It just doesn't translate to team success, and it's always the constant question of, is having Kyrie Irving on my team worth the headache that it brings? But when he's on the floor, you cannot argue with Kyrie Irving being a top 25 player in the game. The talent is there. 24, Pascal Siakam, who, as I mentioned earlier, wouldn't be surprised to see this guy on a new team in a couple of weeks, probably Atlanta, if he does end up getting dealt. 24 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Did not shoot the 3 nearly as efficiently as he has in the past, which is slightly concerning, but he's extremely versatile. You can get the ball in his hands and he can be your primary playmaker if you want him to. There are not a lot of guys out there at his size with his agility and his facilitating skills. Is he better than Mikal Bridges? Maybe. That's a conversation. Is he better than Kyrie Irving? I don't think so. So I would probably put Kyrie Irving over Pascal Siakam. Number 23, Karl-Anthony Towns. Such a weird player to rank. This is Anthony Edwards' team. The fit between him and Rudy Gobert at the 4 and 5 was not great in what we saw in a relatively limited sample size last season. Anytime you add Rudy Gobert to your team, it's a massive adjustment, not only for him in the system, but every other player in the system, because he is always in the paint. You don't want him out of the paint on offense or on defense. And Cat, on one end, that helped him because he's the second best three-point shooting big man that we have ever seen right now. The issue for Cat is he doesn't look ready in the postseason. He's constantly disappointed, hasn't really taken the opportunity to show that he can bring his game to another level, whereas Anthony Edwards, in a much more limited sample size, looks like the guy. Karl-Anthony Towns, absolutely, 23 makes sense, but can't really justify putting him any higher. This is a weird one for me. The usage rate for James Harden was pretty high last year. He shot the three very well. That is the one major prop I will give to James Harden, 38.5% from three. He had not been shooting it well from long range over the past couple of seasons until this prior campaign, and he really turned it up. You know, he led the league in assists, but as we all know, you watch those highlights, when you're at home in Philadelphia and you just dump the ball off to Joel Embiid and let him go to work, take two dribbles, spin and score, and you get credited with an assist, that is not, you're not working as hard for those assists as guys like Tyrese Halliburton, who's playing with a decimated Indiana Pacers supporting cast. The stats, 21 points, 6 rebounds, almost 11 assists, they're inflated to me. I wouldn't take him over Kyrie Irving. I would not take him over Mikal Bridges. So this is the first one that is really a bit of a head scratcher to me. Ja Morant, 21, maybe a little low. Down 11 spots, was number 10 last year. You know, when he played, I thought Ja was actually very good. He took his playmaking to the next level, averaged over 8 assists per game for the first time in his career. That was really impressive to see him take his facilitating to another gear. If we're talking strictly on court, whatever you think about Ja and his off-court concerns, what he does on the basketball court is worthy of ranking him as a top 17, 16, or 15 player in the league, in my opinion. Donovan Mitchell at 20 had an incredible first season in Cleveland. Look at the numbers there. I mean, career high in points, shot the ball really well, very efficiently. Only up one spot. I have to see who comes in the top 20, but based on what Donovan Mitchell did last year, he deserves to be up more than just one spot. Yeah, I ranked Donovan Mitchell over Jaylen Brown. I think Donovan Mitchell definitely had a better season than Jaylen Brown. I don't really see anything that Jaylen did last season that Donovan Mitchell didn't do better than him. So I'm not sure. And this is coming from someone who covers the Celtics, has been a Celtics fan for the entirety of their life. I don't think as of right now he's a better player than Donovan Mitchell. I'm not sure you could find me one thing he definitively does better, except for maybe shooting the midi. Jaylen's got a very good midi. Paul George, why? How is Paul George? I understand that he's still a fantastic player when he gets on the floor, but he's consistently unavailable. 56 games played last year. That feels relatively high for him, to be honest, compared to what we've seen over the last few seasons and his injury concerns. What has Paul George done over the last couple of years, specifically last season, because that's what we're focusing on, that warrants putting him over Jaylen Brown or over Donovan Mitchell for sure? This feels like a legacy ranking for Paul George, whereas Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown are both not significantly better players, but definitively better players than him right now. This feels like a bit of recency bias. It's great to see De'Aaron Fox get the respect he deserves, and he was the clutch player of the season for the NBA. The inaugural winner of that award for a reason was fantastic. The numbers in the clutch were astounding. The numbers are there. This feels like a case of recency bias where he played very well in the postseason, even though Sacramento lost to Golden State. I think you can make a case that he deserves to be over Paul George, but not over Jaylen Brown or Donovan Mitchell, certainly. Speaking of overcorrections, over-exaggerations, Jamal Murray also does not deserve to be anywhere near a top 20 spot in this league, and I'm sorry to trigger Nuggets fans with that. It's just the case. Yes, few players in NBA history get up for the playoffs quite like Jamal Murray. That's the best part about Jamal Murray, is his postseason production is incredible, and he really takes his game to the next level. You know, Bubble Murray was a thing. I said on DraftKings The Sweat a couple of months ago when they started this playoff run that Bubble Murray shouldn't be the nickname. It should just be Playoff Murray, because this is who he is. He really shows up when the lights are brightest, and for that reason, I'm glad he's getting the respect he deserves, because he has been slept on the last few years. But I don't know if he's better than De'Aaron Fox. He's not better than Donovan Mitchell. He's not better than Jaylen Brown. It's not a question. Into the top 15 here, Anthony Edwards. Sure, this feels like, again, another overcorrection based off of recency bias. Anthony Edwards is playing fantastic for Team USA. He's been their guy in the FIBA World Cup. Just, it's a matter of time before he becomes a better player than Jaylen, if he's not already. I don't think he's a better player than Donovan Mitchell right now. Donovan Mitchell was an incredibly talented scorer. Anthony Edwards is a fantastic, young, talented player, and there's a chance he takes that leap into the top 15 this year. For me, I would probably put him more in the 20 to 25 range. Number 14, when Damian Lillard is on the floor, despite being up there in age and having injury concerns, he is still one of the most unstoppable players in the league. You see the stats for yourself. The biggest knock on Damian Lillard is he's putting up crazy numbers, but they're empty stats because they just have not translated to postseason production recently. And he's likely going to be in a Miami Heat jersey in a couple of months, maybe even a couple of weeks or days. The thing that's going to be defining for him is whenever he does get traded, whether it's to Miami or to another team where hopefully he can contend for a championship, if he comes up short again and doesn't perform well in the playoffs, for as great as Damian Lillard has been in the postseason, Dame time's a real thing. He's also had a couple of series where he has just completely fallen off the radar and not played well whatsoever. So when he gets in a better situation where he can actually compete, we're going to see who Damian Lillard really is. As of right now, it's all theoretical to an extent because he's putting up empty stats. But based off pure talent alone, I understand why he's the 14th best player in the NBA. I can't really argue with it. Moving on to 13, Kawhi Leonard. No. Why is he here? Why is he this high? This, again, both of these Clippers spots, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they feel like legacy spots. Feels like I'm watching a basketball fan rank this who is a diehard Clippers fan and says, but if the Clippers ever get healthy, they're winning the whole thing. Guess what? They're never gonna be healthy. At this stage in their career, we know who both of these guys are. Incredibly talented basketball players, but they cannot put it together. There's a reason the Clippers have been so horribly underperforming. And when he gets on the floor, he is a fantastic player, yes, but he's not the two-way incredible stopper he was. He's not the best defensive player in the league anymore, even when he's at his best. And offensively, he's not the Terminator that we saw, from their championship run in Toronto with the Raptors. He's not that guy anymore. He's still a very talented NBA player, still a top 20, top 25 player in the game, but he is not better than a handful of guys who are ranked below him on this list. Jimmy Butler is such an interesting case because he's not nearly as talented as everyone else on this list. All the other guys who are ranked top 25, I think you can make a legitimate case that they are more talented than Jimmy Butler. It's just what he's been able to do consistently in terms of his role in his team's success in Miami in the postseason. They made the finals, twice in the last 4 years with him being the guy. And for him to do that and will this team to the finals without being that talented of a basketball player, and he'll be the first to admit that. But he just wants it more. He's got the clutch gene. Very impressive. Number 11, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is my guy. He would have been most improved player if Lauri Markkanen hadn't gone from being a relative bum to a fantastic number one option for the Utah Jazz last year. But he doesn't get any consistent production. He's putting up over 31 points per game without getting any consistent production from three. And he still finds a way to be one of the most effective, dominant scorers in the league. He's very young, up 22 spots from 33. No complaints here. I love it. I get it. When Anthony Davis is playing at his best, he's arguably the best defender in the league, arguably. When he's at his best, he's the best player on the Lakers. We haven't seen LeBron James yet. He's going to be ranked higher than him. I would agree with ranking LeBron over Anthony Davis, but it's not because LeBron is better than AD at both of their peaks. AD is better than LeBron at his peak. We just don't see it nearly as much because he is so inconsistent or he's always injured. Questionable if he deserves a top 10 spot in these rankings, but I understand it. Number 9, Devin Booker. Yeah, the best shooting guard in the league, put up ridiculous stats last year. The main concern with Devin Booker is his availability. He has not been very healthy over the last few years, 53 games played last season. He's got some hammy issues, lower body concerns with his legs, but when he is on the floor, incredibly efficient, takes his game to another level in the postseason. We saw unreal performances from him for a decimated Suns squad, just him and Kevin Durant trying to battle their way through and he deserves a spot in the top 10. I'm fine with him being at number 9. Number 8, Kevin Durant, his teammate, back-to-back. We know what KD does. He is just the complete basketball player, and when he's trying defensively, he still has a lot to give on that side of the ball. So he's down 3 spots from 5. I'm gonna have to see who's ranked above him to really give my thoughts on that. I understand it. I would give him the slight edge over Devin Booker. I like that these two are ranked back-to-back though. Number 7, LeBron James. See, yeah, I would rank Kevin Durant over LeBron James. If you need a guy to take over a game and will your team to a win in the playoffs, as of right now, despite the Lakers making it farther in the postseason last year, LeBron showed plenty of signs of fatigue, and it's not really his fault. The guy's old, 38 years old. What are you going to do? Kevin Durant at his peak, and we see Kevin Durant at his peak when he plays. Neither of these guys play a lot of games per season at this point. They're missing a lot of time just to ensure that they are fresh for the playoffs and they pick up little ticky-tack injuries. As of right now, I would give the edge to Kevin Durant over LeBron James, and I would say that pretty definitively. Number 6, Steph Curry, 29, 6 and 6. This is a guy who, despite being well over 30 years of age, does not look like it. His cardio is incredible, and he might be the most difficult player besides Nikola Jokic to game plan for in the NBA. He is impossible to defend and keep track of. We saw Boston fall apart in the finals just 2 years ago because they had no idea what to do with Steph Curry. His movement just causes chaos. All 5 guys, the guy who's defending Curry and the 4 guys who are defending the other players, are all focused on him. They got one eye on him at all times when he's running around the floor. You can't say that for a lot of other guys, probably only Nikola Jokic. Number 5, Jason Tatum. Yeah, it's really a toss-up between Curry and Tatum. You know, there's no denying the numbers and what Tatum did last year. Took that leap that Celtics fans have been waiting for, deservedly moved up from 7 to 5. 30 points per game, 8.8 rebounds per game. Quietly one of the best rebounders in the game. He took his facilitating to a next level, 4.6 assists per game. All 3 of these top categories were career highs. I understand ranking him top 5. Not sure I would put him over Steph Curry, though. Joel Embiid at 4. I mean, the stats are crazy. MVP last year, although it was a pity MVP, everyone knows that Nikola Jokic really should have won it, and he showed that in the postseason. The stats that Embiid put up are crazy, and he still, when he wants to be, is probably the most dominant force in the league. The issue is, the man hasn't made the Eastern Conference Finals so far in his career, and a lot of that blame, while it can be put on guys like Ben Simmons, the coaching staff, Doc Rivers for not adequately preparing his players, etc., at the end of the day, he's the superstar. He's got to get it done, and he's not gotten it done. He had an incredible individual statistical season, but his stats and his production have not translated to team success. I am not sure they ever will in Philadelphia. We're into the top 3 here now. I'm assuming there he is, Luka Doncic. Talent-wise, he's off the charts. It's only a matter of time before he gets to this level. I think these stats, while they were insane, they were inflated by a significantly expanded usage rate. He was the entire Dallas Mavericks offense until Kyrie Irving arrived prior to the trade deadline. I mean, the efficiency wasn't there. 49.6% from the field is good, but didn't shoot the 3 well at all. The turnovers were really, really bad for the Mavericks, and there's a reason that they didn't even make the playoffs, and they ended up with a lottery pick. How can a guy who puts up these numbers not even make the playoffs and be a top 3 player in the game? You know, Damian Lillard's putting up similar scoring numbers, and there's a reason he was ranked so much lower. It's because they were empty stats. Last year, these were empty stats for Luka Doncic. Number 2, I'm assuming we're going to see Giannis here. Yep, and which means number 1, Nikola Jokic, 2 of the most dominant players in the game. Jokic being anywhere but number 1 would have been an absolute sham. Clearly the best player in the league. There's not much to say about him. And Giannis, in my opinion, is pretty clearly the second best player in the league. I mean, we look at the stats, crazy. Obviously, Milwaukee just lost in the first round, but there were a lot of factors that played into that. Chris Middleton was not healthy. Drew Holiday was not playing well. Giannis was hurt for some of that series. There were reasons they lost that series. Even if it was an abject failure, he deserves to be the number 2 player on this list. Nikola Jokic deserves to be the number 1. Interesting rankings here. I think the top 10's fine. 11 to 25 is a bit of a mess, in my opinion. I'm not sure there's a lot of consistency with the justifications behind these rankings, but it's always interesting. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Stay tuned for my top 10 power forwards in the NBA entering the 2023 NBA season later this week.